Today, my guest is Cathy Rust. Cathy, thank you so much for being with me today. Cathy has a business that is called 𝗚𝗿𝘀𝘁𝘂𝘁, and we are going to talk menopause, folks. And we're going to talk ethical clothing and better sleep. Cathy, thank you so much for being here. I'm psyched to learn about this.
Oh, thanks, Amy. It's so nice to see you in person. We've been chatting via Facebook for a while, and for
Yeah.
having me on your show.
Absolutely. I mean, this is something, of course, that I'm starting to experience myself. But we were talking earlier, and there are so many things that that I'm learning as I'm getting older, that there are people just don't talk about a lot of stuff. And so, you're experiencing these symptoms, and you're not sure if it's menopause or if it's something else or whatever. But nobody talks about it, so it's not like you can say, "Oh, you were talking about this. Is this something that?" What did you do for that? Because people don't talk about it. And so you are putting it out there, and you've created this clothing for better sleep and to cure some night sweats. So tell us about 𝗚𝗿𝘀𝘁𝘂𝘁.
Oh, well, thanks. Yes. Now, just to be technically correct, it will not cure your night sweats, unfortunately. It will help you sleep more comfortably. And I know this because I suffered like there was no tomorrow. And believe me, there were some nights when I thought, I cannot believe I have to go through this again. But you're absolutely right. I didn't talk about it with anybody when I was going through menopause, and none of my friends talked about it. And our parents, our mothers, didn't talk about it either. So we learned from the masters, so to speak. But what I have noticed is you're a generation younger than I am, and your generation is not putting up with it, and they are talking about it, and that to me is critical. So it's great that your generation has said, I can't take it anymore. I got to find something to help me get through this. And part of that is that I think there are more women in the workforce at your age, even than at mine. You don't have time between being a sandwich generation looking after your parents and children to have something like menopause symptoms take you down. So you've got to get something to get it fixed. And because of that, it is being pushed to the fore in terms of topics. And since January, I've seen more information out there on menopause and how it's an underserved category than I've ever seen. So it's really great that it is getting the attention that it's getting now.
Oh, okay. So you've been seeing it like I've been seeing it since the beginning of this year. Oh, okay. I thought it was
Yeah.
because I started talking about it that it's been showing up. Okay. So it's really a thing. Okay. And so I'm trying to you are coming along at this perfect time for me because I've been suffering with this. And your timing is really good. I mean, you say so you've been coming up with this, your business has been around for 2 years, you said. About 2 years?
Well, yes, I launched it. I started it 3 years ago in March of 2020. No coincidence with the pandemic. Seriously, it was just pure happenstance. But how I went about creating it was due to the pandemic. In other words, I created it online, whereas if there hadn't been a pandemic, I would have gone out to shows and into exhibits and talked to people a little bit more. Instead, it was things like I would drop off nightgowns at my friends' doors and then walk away and say, "Can you try this for me and bring it back and let me know what you think?" Because that was the only way we could do it in 2020. So by the time I launched it, which was 2021, that was when the whole business got started. But yeah, I started it based on a need and my inability to properly meet my own personal need of being able to sleep in something that did not make me all hot, sweaty, damp, soggy, cold, warm, you name it. You know what I'm
Angry.
going through, right? It's just everything that you could. It is the worst feeling. You feel sometimes like you're sleeping in a bathtub, and then you get up and you change and you're wide awake, and you have to go back and sleep on those soggy sheets. So I would keep a towel beside me, and I'd roll the towel down. I know other people who kick their husbands out of bed.
I'm putting new sheets on.
Yeah, or they just take his side of the bed. So, so I mean, you are, you are not the same person when you go through menopause. I don't know a better way of saying that, but there is a bit of a personality change, and part of it is based on that uncomfortable heat feeling that you have when you're going through this.
It's so true. Like, I feel like in the middle of the night when I wake up and I'm wet and then I'm sweaty and then I have to get back into bed and lay on that sweaty whatever, like I'm literally angry. Like, oh my gosh, what is going on? What is wrong with my body? And so I totally get that. That is not how I am, but that's how I am in the middle of the night sometimes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I know. I at least I completely understand and feel. And it's just, I actually used to be my own personal cooling fan, because the covers would get flipped off, and then the covers would get pulled back on, and then flipped off and pulled back on. So many times a night, I was my own fan. It was just insane, and it was exhausting. And one night, I actually, before I went to bed, I guess it had been happening for so long, and I always wake up optimistic, thinking, well, tonight is going to be different. Tonight, I'm not going to have night sweats. They're going to go away. Everything will be fine. I'll go back to normal. Instead of really understanding how menopause works, that you are going through, they don't call it the change for nothing. I mean, your body is changing again the exact same way that it does through puberty. You're going to the other end of things, and your hormones are going crazy because they're declining, but they don't decline at the same rate. And that is what makes you so miserable. So I didn't know any of this. I did all of this research, and I am not a health professional. This is all based just on research. But because all of that is happening, that is what they believe is causing your hot flashes and your night sweats. So if you can get your hormones more into balance, then you will have less of a problem. And some people will focus on using hormone replacement therapy. Others will focus on diet, lifestyle, and exercise. Some people need both of those together. I couldn't use HRT. It didn't work for me. So I was forced to use diet and lifestyle, and you basically have to become a monk, in my case, for a little while. It's kind of depressing, but at the same time, you do feel better. So you have to look at the positives. It's just hard to believe the stuff you could do in your 20s, you can no longer do in your 50s. Kind of sucks. But
yeah, I hear you. So tell me about being a monk. Like, what it
So I used to drink 2 cups of espresso a day. Like, I don't even consider myself overindulgent, but I'm a very active person. I do a lot of exercise. I really enjoy exercise. And I had to, before menopause, before that official 1 day of menopause, which is 365 days after your last period, I had a terrible 8 years of migraines. And one of the things that caused my migraines, in addition to caffeine and alcohol and dairy and gluten, was exercise. So by 2016, I started having to do, my doctor said, keep a migraine journal to find out what's causing your migraines. And so you write down everything. And one of the things, and so I was doing this if-then hypothesis. If I do exercise and I wake up with a migraine, therefore they're related, especially if I've narrowed out, I've eliminated everything else. And that was what was happening. So I was doing if I eat gluten and I get a migraine, then gluten is causing a migraine. So I took gluten out and I got migraine relief. So this went on until I realized that after I've eliminated everything and I'm still getting migraines, the last thing was exercise. So I had to take that out of my whole life. So by being a monk in 2016, it actually made me really depressed because I couldn't do anything. So I was just at a point when I went to my doctor in tears and said, you've got to do something about this. And she said, okay, here's a prescription for a prophylactic called 𝗚𝗿𝗃. Have you ever heard of 𝗚𝗿𝗃?
I haven't.
It's like an EpiPen. You stab it in your thigh once a month. And I was just about to do it. I had my prescription. I was just about to buy it. And I started getting one less migraine. And then I thought, wait a minute, I only had 3 this week instead of 4. And then the next week I had 3 less migraines, and et cetera, et cetera. And so by the time, because I saw an improvement, I never ended up having to take it. And now I get one every 2 months. I know exactly what to do. I don't know why they happen. They just do. And everything's much, much better. But in terms of living like a monk, everything out. And then the same thing for night sweats. I went right back to keeping a night sweats journal, because I also didn't know that night sweats are related to your lifestyle, and that there are lifestyle triggers for hot flashes and night sweats.
Oh no.
So I know. So you do, it is frustrating. Not everyone is like me, so you may not be like that. And also a lot of people, it's just temporary. So it doesn't happen forever. And you have to keep that in mind. But having said that, because I had to stop exercising at a pretty good clip, I've lost at least 20% of my muscle mass. And so now I have to build that up, because later in life, you need to have strong bones and you need strong muscles. And so now I've got to figure out how I'm going to rebuild all of that muscle strength that I had before. So
was it a specific type of exercise that was contributing?
Any kind.
Oh,
I mean, if it was low, so I should say it was high intensity. So anything that I was doing that involved consistent cardio work was what was getting to me. But that also included, and I did a lot of strength training, that kind of thing. And so that all had to stop. So that's what led me, that same method of identifying the triggers for menopause or for my migraines, I used 3 years later when I thought I was out of the woods. Yay, menopause is over, because I didn't know any better. It turned out that it wasn't. And so I was waking up totally sleep deprived. Went to my doctor again. She said, go back and use your journal. And so I started identifying things like red wine. And so that got cut out. And don't drink herbal tea too close to bed, because that was causing my night sweats. The early part of my night sweats, the caffeine was doing okay because it was early in the day, so that was fine. But there were a lot of triggers like that. Oh, and I had to exercise, but not too close to bed, because that gets your sympathetic nervous system going. And so, yeah, like living like a monk, it is amazing how much more in tune you have to be. Not everyone is like me, just remember that. Like a lot of people just sail through menopause without problems. I don't want to scare you. I unfortunately happen not to be one of those.
Right.
But the night sweats were the worst, because you're sleep deprived.
Right. Oh my gosh. And so you were experiencing these night sweats, and you decided you were going to do something about it. And so you created this dress. So tell us about the clothing.
Okay, there's a combination here of, this is going to sound weird, green building and finding the right sleepwear, because my professional background is green building. I write about green building and green building materials, where to buy them, how to find them, how much they cost, how to install them, all that sort of stuff. And the reason I started that blog way back in 2010 was because I was doing a renovation and I wanted to use healthier, better building materials, and I couldn't find anything. So I started this little tiny blog. It's a really terrible name. It's called 𝗣icigreen.ca, and Google has picked it up for years and years, so I still come up. So even though I haven't maintained it in the last little while, but I'm going to get back to it at some point. Anyway, so what happened was, I'd just been to a green building conference a year earlier, and I've been learning about how industrial hemp was being used to moderate heat and moisture in buildings. So within a very specific range, hemp as either hempcrete or as insulation, as long as that insulation has the ability to breathe. So you can't cover it with something like latex wall paint, because that creates a vapor barrier. So anyway, when hemp has the ability to be next to heat and moisture, it will actually regulate it by absorbing heat. It's a bit like diffusion. It absorbs heat and then releases it back and keeps the air temperature within that room at around 65 degrees. And it keeps the humidity within a comfortable range. And anything that's excess humidity will get absorbed by the hemp. And anything when there is less humidity in the air, it's this humidity within the hemp will be released, so that you always have a comfortable range. That's within obviously a certain range, because it is a sponge, so it can only absorb and release so much. Right. So I kept thinking, I wish there was a fabric that would do this for me, because there's got to be something. Because the problem with night sweats is you don't just get hot. It's not about just being hot, it's about being hot and cold. And so your temperature peaks, but then it plummets below your basal body temperature before it goes back up to your basal body temperature, which is your basic temperature line. And because of that, that's one of the reasons why you're a fan all night long, flipping off and covering and putting your covers back on. And so I thought there's got to be something. So I actually went looking. So before that, I went looking and for just a cotton nightgown, because I thought cotton's breathable. I'll use cotton. And I tried a cotton nightgown. It did absolutely nothing. In fact, I was really shocked. But it turns out when I went down the fabric rabbit hole, that cotton loves water. That's why it's used for towels. It's super absorbent, but it doesn't like to let go. So it keeps that water molecule in the cotton fabric itself. And that's why your sheets are clammy and damp. And actually, the thicker the cotton sheets, the more luxurious, the more it's going to keep that the heat and the moisture next to you. It's super fun.
I can feel it just listening to you, Cathy.
Isn't it fun?
It's so great.
Much fun to have night sweats. So anyway, so that was what led me on my journey, because I thought, wait a minute, cotton, this should have worked and it didn't work. Why isn't this working? Why am I still so miserable? And then I started thinking, okay, I'm gonna have to put my green building materials hat on and figure this out. So I started looking, just for my own sake, for hemp sleepwear. I thought there's got to be something made out of hemp, because I knew hemp was good for buildings, and I also knew it was made into a fabric. So I thought there's got to be something. Could not find any hemp sleepwear anywhere, and they did. I shouldn't say that. They did have some, but it was not appropriate for women of a certain age. Let's move.
Oh gosh, I think I need to look that up
really
now.
Cute. Not, and plus it didn't, like, it was, they had skimpy bikini kind of things, and I'm looking going, okay, A, that's not going to help, because, and B, I'm not wearing that to bed. So that was, so then I thought, wait, if I'm suffering like this, there've got to be other women who are suffering just as much as I am. And then I started talking to my friends, and it turns out I was not the only one out there who was suffering from night sweats.
We just weren't talking about it.
Yeah. And then I started looking online, and it turns out that 75% of all women going through some stage of menopause will experience hot flashes or night sweats. Oh. So even though people say to me very often, oh, you're in a niche market, I kind of say, well, I guess if you consider 50 million people in North America a niche market, yeah, I suppose it is. So that's just North America too, because there are a lot of, I think it's something insane, like 1.2 million women enter menopause every year. It's a big number. And then on top of that, they're suffering from symptoms for 10 years.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, I
So
mean it's not just menopause, it's like perimenopause or premenopause and
exactly.
like
And
it
post-menopause.
oh,
Mine didn't even start until a year after my menopause date.
right.
So
Ugh,
yeah.
man.
So that's what got me started. I decided that I was going to provide this sleepwear and help women get their sleep back. And because of my background in green building materials, I wanted to do that as ethically and as sustainably as I possibly could. So I was lucky because finding the fabric was actually the easiest part of this whole journey, which surprised me. And maybe it's because I knew exactly what to type in to find the manufacturer of the fabric, but they're based in the United States, the fabric manufacturer, and they don't produce in the States because no one produces this fabric anywhere in, or the yarn, anywhere in North America. The yarn is all made overseas. At this point, you don't have a choice, but I decided I wanted to use hemp because that offers the possibility of one day making the fabric here in North America because hemp is grown in North America very easily. So that was one of the reasons that I chose hemp. Like I first looked at its responsiveness, but bamboo is also highly responsive, and linen is highly responsive as well.
Hmm.
So, and Tencel made from hemp and Tencel are all really responsive. So they all have the ability to react the same way to night sweats because they're great at moderating and maintaining moisture and heat. But I wanted to use hemp because it is grown all over North America. More in Canada, it's coming into the States now.
Awesome.
So that's my reason for using it.
Okay. Do you know why no one is working with it here?
It's so yeah, actually, I talked to a couple of farmers who grow hemp or who had tried to grow hemp, and I said, why don't we grow more of it? And the problem right now is the machinery, the equipment. Because hemp was banned from being grown in Canada and the States for over 80 years, the processing equipment has not kept up with the processing. So the equipment is all a little bit farther delayed. They're called decorticators. And the decorticators, that's what they use to strip the leaves off of the stalks, are still kind of old school, so to speak. So I know that that's one of the reasons, because the machinery is quite expensive and the demand is still building up for hemp. But it has over 200 uses. You can make bioplastics out of it. You can make, obviously we use it for CBD oil and food, but it's also used for building materials, both concrete, it's called hempcrete, and for insulation. It's used for bioplastics and paper and fabric and like tons of stuff. And now they're looking at making it into oil for cars, fuel oil.
Nice.
So
Wow.
it's got a ton of uses, and I'd like to see it get used in for other applications as well as fabric. But as I said, for the most part in North America, the hemp that is grown is used for oil and for food oil and grain.
Cool.
So,
Decorticator. Wow.
Interesting word, isn't it?
Now, what was that? You had talked about a few other fibers that one started with a T. Did you?
Oh, Tencel.
Tencel? I've never heard of that.
Tencel is Tencel is the brand name for a semi-synthetic fiber called lyocell. And lyocell is the generic name. And it's made by most of it is made by this company called Lenzig out of Austria. I think it was invented in the States though. And then Lenzig found it, bought it, and then took it back. But it is actually an environmentally friendly version of rayon. It's 99% recycled. It doesn't have nearly the waste that rayon does, and it doesn't use the harsh chemicals and emit them into the environment the way rayon is made. So it's a much better fabric, but it has that soft, stretchy, silky feeling that rayon does as well. But it also preserves the fibers that it's been made with, whereas rayon doesn't. Rayon, they add a bunch of chemicals to whatever cellulose you add to it, and it kind of melts into this blob. And then they press it out through a filter, kind of like, as I mentioned to you earlier, Play-Doh. And so that's the same thing they do for Tencel, but they are able to preserve the qualities and the properties of the base that have been used to make it. So it preserves the hemp, it preserves the eucalyptus, it preserves the bamboo. The one thing about Tencel is because it is semi-synthetic, it's not as strong and it tears easily. It's not easily repaired. So you always have to look at the pros and cons of everything that you're buying. It is definitely more expensive than rayon. It's well worth the price. And so you do have to look at the pros and cons. I would absolutely consider doing some sort of Tencel product at some point down the line, but it would have to be a Tencel bamboo Tencel or a hemp Tencel to really get the benefits that hot and sweaty people need to find that relief. So,
right.
So that's Tencel.
Huh. That's really interesting. And so you said it's not quite as strong as rayon, but it's better.
It's not as strong. It's not as strong as, let's say, linen or hemp or even cotton, because it's a synthetic fabric. It's what they call them, semi-synthetic. It's not as synthetic as polyester, which is a petroleum-based product, but it's not completely natural the way hemp and linen and cotton are. And so it's right in between. They boil it down, so to speak. They add some chemicals and they break down the cellulose into fibers, and then they put it back together. And so that is why it's called semi-synthetic. It starts with a cellulose base. So but I would look for that. You can find, if you look at the fabric tags, that's the best way to tell what kind of fabric something is and whether it's going to be useful for you if you're suffering from hot flashes. So, and I like Tencel because it's more environmentally friendly than bamboo viscose or bamboo or rayon.
Okay. And what did you say that the generic form of the generic Tencel is?
It's called lyocell.
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 Oh, okay. So cell like cellulose.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh, I never got that. Ding. So well done, Amy.
Yay. All right. So now you figured out your fabric, but so you're using hemp and you're using cotton, right? A mixture of the two for your sleepwear?
Yeah, because hemp on its own, and this is everyone's perception, including my own, was, oh my gosh, it's going to feel like I'm wearing a burlap sack. So I wanted to make sure that what I received was really comfortable and something that you just want to spend all your time in. And I don't actually like the feeling of rayon next to me. It's just my personal preference. A friend of mine describes rayon as wet lettuce, and it's a very, very soft and it's clingy, and I don't like that feeling. So I love cotton t-shirts. That's what I really enjoy wearing, and I find that is the most comfortable for me, especially when I'm sleeping. I don't like woven materials. Those are the ones that don't give. So any button-down polo shirt, for instance, that's a woven fabric. Flannel is woven. So, and I mean, flannel when you've got night sweats, no, thank you. So, anyway, so I found this manufacturer of fabric, had them send me over their sample book, and then I ordered 4 or 5 different kinds to try. I actually made my own sleepwear out of them, which is really embarrassing because I'm a terrible sewer, and then slept in them and figured out which weight was the most comfortable, which style was the most comfortable. And then once I sort of narrowed it down to a very specific fabric, the right weight, and I chose a knit over a woven, then I had my friends who suffered from night sweats all try out this one prototype. Fortunately, hemp is antibacterial. So even once it doesn't smell after even a couple of days. So you don't need to wash it every single night, because that's another problem when you're sweating all night long, is that you have to wash your sleepwear. And the other fortunate thing about hemp is it is wash and wear. You throw it in the washing machine. You can even put it in the dryer. If you do put it in the dryer, put it on delicate, because it does shrink, but not that much. Mm-hmm. So I throw mine in the dryer just because I'm super lazy, but you have to be prepared for a little bit of shrinkage. And so just the ease and the care and the no-brainer, I don't want to have to think about this, those were all just as important to me as the fabric itself, because you can also buy wool as a thermoregulating sleepwear. I'm not convinced. I have read everywhere that it is amazing. I know it as a thermal insulator, but everybody says, no, it's the best, it's the best. And that might be because if you buy the super lightest merino wool that there is, it might keep you really comfy, but it has to be hand washed. So you do have to take that into account. So, or at least on the delicate cycle. So I wanted something that was easy, that you didn't think about. So that was another reason why I chose this fabric, and I did all of this work into it. And then I had to find the manufacturer, and that is tough, let me tell you. So
I can imagine.
Oh yeah, all the factories are closed and they're all word of mouth. So if you don't know anybody in the fashion industry, then finding a factory is next to impossible.
So how did you do it?
Word of mouth. Finally, like I had to start telling people what I was doing, because I didn't have a way of locating a manufacturer. And so then I went up and interviewed, and these guys were amazing. And they really guided me along, but I was trying to do my things as sustainably as possible. So I would say to them, okay, I don't want to use rayon or nylon clothing tags. I want to use organic cotton. And they said, well, you're going to have to go and find them yourself, because they don't use that. They use the nylon ones. So I had to go out and locate. That took me 3 weeks full time trying to find organic cotton.
Tag material.
Yeah. And then I had to figure out what you're supposed to say on them, because if you're exporting to the United States, you have to have where they are made written right on the label. Oh,
Oh.
Whoops. Sorry about that.
I'm glad you came back.
My computer was on its last legs, and I didn't realize I'd been charging it all day. So that's on me. Sorry about that. Good thing it's
Zoom meetings
not
do
live.
it. True story. Oh gosh, I forget what we were talking about. So we were talking about you were talking about the tags.
Yeah, so finding tags, as I mentioned, took me 3 weeks to find the right tags. In the end, because I wanted them, I wanted them made in Canada, I could only find them in cotton. So I just found them in organic cotton. So the next round that I do will be organic cotton tags. But these are the small details. Like you take a look at a t-shirt and you think, yeah, like how hard can that be? It's 3-4 pieces of fabric. What's the big deal? It's a big deal. It turns out, and my manufacturer told me that manufacturing is more complicated than I would expect it to be, and he was not wrong. It's you make a design, then you have to make the pattern, then you have to mark the pattern. Well, you have to do several samples to make sure you get it right. And then you have to mark the pattern on the fabric to make sure that you're wasting as little as possible. Then you have to cut all of the pieces and then sew them. So, and then you've got to figure out where the label is going and what kind of label you want. It just goes on and on and on. And it's mistake after mistake, especially if you're like me and you're a fashion or an apparel newbie. And they make assumptions that you know things, which of course you don't, and you don't know what questions to ask until you've been through it. Right. So it was a real learning experience. I was still really happy with the way the final result came out, but it took longer than I'd expected. But it was a good learning. Just doing that the first time was a good learning experience. So.
Anyway, I can only imagine, Cathy, how it must feel to create this clothing without knowing that it was going to be there was such a need for it. Like, I mean, you were saying, I think before we started recording, that you were on a television show recently, and you said that you sold out from the TV show, and so to know what you're doing is so helpful.
It actually, it's I was really touched. I received first of all, I was floored when I'm on the show, and I have this little Shopify app, and it goes off every time I get a sale, and I'm on the phone, so they said to me, you have to keep your phone beside you in case there's a technical glitch. So
ching,
funny.
Ching, 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 ching,
and
ching.
It's going off like nuts, like bonkers. And I have to keep my eye focused on the camera, and I can see it out of the corner of my eye while I'm trying to have a conversation, and it's going like crazy. And and honestly, I was sort of prepared for a couple of signups to the newsletter and a few sales, maybe 10 or something like that, over the course of the day. But honestly, it was beyond what my expectations were. And I think part of that was exactly what you said, Amy, is that there is a pent-up need for a solution to these horrific night sweats that they often get brushed aside as inconvenient, or just don't worry about them, they'll go away, by doctors and health practitioners, because I can I see where they're coming from. If you have never experienced them the way I have experienced them, or other people, you don't have an understanding of just how much they can ruin your life. Like I had to withdraw from society while I had them because I couldn't sleep. And because I couldn't sleep, I didn't have any energy. I couldn't think properly. I didn't want to participate. The idea of doing any activity was too much of an effort, but I didn't want to go to sleep. Like
Right.
you're in this horrible limbo, this place where you cannot get out of it, but you can't do anything about it either. And you have to figure out a way to solve this problem. So my solution was to ignore it. And clearly that was not successful. I bought my cotton nightgown and realized that that wasn't working, that I really thought, okay, you got to make an effort. You got to do something about this. This is just so miserable. It's just awful. And that's what got me started. But yeah, I've had other women send me notes saying, thank you so much. I can't believe how much this has just saved my sanity. I had one woman say she's throwing all her sleepwear away and she's only wearing this from now on. And, you know, you hear stuff like that and it just touches you because you realize that you're doing something good for people and you're really, really helping them. And that's my goal. Like that, I want women, whether they use mine or other things, to be aware that there are solutions out there to help them get their sleep back. And it doesn't have to be pills. It doesn't have to be supplements. It can be alternatives. So in my case, it was lifestyle changes and fabric. That's what helped. And it might be other things for other people, but they have to know what the choices are. And a lot of us didn't even know that there were choices that existed. So yeah, that's
Wow. You're responsible for saving people's sanity. How about that?
Oh,
I mean,
that's a
I
nice.
totally get it because that's where I'm at right now. Like, I'm not sleeping well and I'm sweating all the time. And like, I have them in the morning and I have them at night. So I like, but I'm not technically in menopause. I'm just like in some
But you
weird
don't.
limbo. And really sorry for the young people that have not experienced this yet. Sorry to scare you. It's coming.
Yeah, that like I don't want my story to be scary, and that's why I keep saying to you, not everybody is like me, and maybe you're going to have a much, much, much better experience. But I also think that the more aware you are of what could happen, the more likely you are to be proactive and to nip it in the bud if that is even possible, but also just to accept the fact that it is a part of the aging process and that we shouldn't consider it just an evil and awful thing to age, but maybe celebrate the fact that we're the fortunate ones that are able to get on with our lives and look at it from that perspective instead of, oh no, I've got wrinkles and gray hair and I can't think of people's names anymore, which is, that's me. So that's, I just think, and I just think that's the way that we need to look at it. And I'm quite vain, which is why I never wanted to consider the fact that I was growing old, but it's not necessarily the best approach, as I've learned the hard way.
Right. Well, I mean, I think that not necessarily growing old, but like growing old gracefully and like not
Yeah,
not giving in and saying, I'm just gonna be miserable. And then,
exactly.
you're not giving up. You're trying to make it work. And I think that that's really honorable. And you are helping so many people. And I can't wait
Well,
to try one. Like I imagine it's super comfortable, whether you have the night sweats or not.
it is super, well, I'm biased, but
Right.
I crave comfort over almost anything else. And so I made it because I wanted to stay away from polyester, which is A, really cheap, and B, just awful for us and for the environment. And so I knew that I wasn't going to do anything. I wasn't going to touch polyester. Unfortunately, right now, our thread is polyester because the sewers wouldn't do a line change because my quantities are too small. You have
Mm-hmm.
to have a certain quantity in order for them to use a cotton thread. And so once I reach a certain volume, then I'll ask them to switch it over to a cotton thread. So I do have polyester thread, can't be helped. But polyester, they're now finding it basically in our lungs, and they're worried it's circulating in our blood, and they're worried about it, excuse me, passing the blood-brain barrier. That was just in January in The Guardian.
Oh.
And so you look at these things and you say, yeah, we know about the plastic garbage patch, and we know that it's in wildlife and sea life. But what we didn't know is that it's actually in our air at home, and that we're breathing it in and it's getting into our lungs. And so when you look at that and just how insidious polyester is, it's really important for me to make a concerted effort to try to raise the demand for amazing natural fabric that works as effectively, if not more effectively, lasts just as long, and is a compostable at end of life that polyester is not. So I wanted to think about the whole life cycle of the clothing from the very beginning to the very end, as well as its uses, its wear. So that's the other thing. One nightgown, as I like to say, it is pricey, but one nightgown is all you need. One will outlast your night sweats. You don't have to continue buying pills. You don't have to go to acupuncturists. I mean, you can do all of those things. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying that those are all treatments that are continuous, and you have to continue to pay for. This is a one-time purchase. Mm-hmm. And I wanted something that was simple, easy to use, easy to wear, that was a no-brainer for women. I mean, eventually men, because I've had a lot of men say to me, could you make something for us? Because we're hot and sweaty too. So
that is true.
One day, but right now it's like, okay, but these women, they got to get their sleep back, because we're not used to it. I think even more so than men. It seems to happen so abruptly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you said 75%. 75% of women are experiencing the night sweats during menopause. 70, is that what the number that you said? 75?
So 75% of women in some stage of menopause, be it peri or post, because menopause only lasts one day, it's just a mark on the calendar, will experience some form of night sweats or hot flashes. Mm-hmm. And that may be for a certain period of time, very, very limited, or it may be chronic. And I know women in their 60s and 70s who are still experiencing night sweats.
Take care of those people first.
yeah, exactly. So we have to help women get their sleep back, because that's like, sleep is essential to our long-term and our short-term health. Mm-hmm. And we have to sleep. So that's feeling. And if you sleep well, you can make better choices, because without sleep, you crave carbs, your blood pressure goes up, you can't exercise because you're too tired. So the minute you start sleeping better, you can make better food choices, you have the energy to exercise, you make better brain choices, your brain keeps up with the conversations and decision making. So all of those are due to a good night's sleep. And that's why sleep is just so important to every other part of your life.
Wow. That's amazing. I mean, what a gift. What a gift, Cathy. I mean, you're probably, I don't know what your volume is like, but I expect you're gonna have to increase at some point soon.
I hope so. Right now, I'll tell you, my biggest challenge, women who get it. And people who it's really about getting awareness about how fabric can be effective. Because of the information that's out there on the web, a lot of that information is inaccurate or not detailed enough to help you understand how fabric works. So for instance, let's say you're sleeping, let's say you buy my nightgown, one buys it, they wear it, they wake up the next day and they're soaking wet, and they say, well, that didn't work. And then you have to say, totally get that. Why didn't it work? Let's take a look at your sleeping environment. Are you sleeping with a duvet? Are you sleeping in polyester? Are you sleeping in high luxury cotton? Mm-hmm. Because all of those things provide a barrier to allowing the heat and the moisture to escape. So it's like wearing plastic wrap over top of your wonderful nightgown. I kid you not. It's just that
what a visual.
barrier. I know, isn't that great? Just fabulous. So you got to get rid of the polyester sheets and the polyester comforter, and you have to think about what the layers are. And in fact, actually, we're creating right now this little free booklet. It's not up, it'll be up in the next week or so, to help you sleep in the right fabrics. So whether you use our fabric or not, which are the right fabrics for your sheets, for your blankets, for your duvet covers. Because if you have what I like to call a blocking barrier, it doesn't matter what you've got between those barriers. If that blocking barrier is keeping that heat and sweat next to you, you're still going to be miserable. Or if you have a foam mattress or a waterproof mattress cover, you're going to be miserable because your back is always going to be really hot. I had one customer send me a note and say, I don't get this. My one side is totally fine and my other side is completely soaking wet. So I sent them a note and I said, well, what side is close to your mattress? And she told me, and then she said, well, I sleep on my back. And I said, well, do you have a foam mattress or a waterproof mattress cover? And she said, yeah, I have a waterproof mattress cover. So I said, get rid of them. Try taking the mattress cover off for one night, assuming you don't have a foam mattress, and see if that makes a difference. And lo and behold, she woke up with a non-sweaty with a dry back. So then I just said, go and get a non-waterproof mattress cover, because if you don't take fluids to bed or you don't need it for bodily function reasons, there's no reason why you need a waterproof mattress cover. So get rid of that, and that will definitely help ease your sweats. So that's another thing to think about, is what are you sleeping in, or what layers are you wearing when you're having hot flashes, because you just want to be able to let that heat escape, and the moisture, especially the moisture. So, and cotton is great to have on the outside as a comforter or a blanket, because it is so absorbent. It sucks all that moisture away from you to the outside. So cotton blankets and cotton quilts are great for sleeping.
Okay.
Assuming you can stand having any kind of blanket on you whatsoever.
Right. Yes. Wow. Okay. This is so enlightening. I'm loving this. I'm feeling first so validated, and I appreciate that so much. But also just knowing that there's help. There's help for me and there's help for others. I think that's wonderful.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, there is. It's really building awareness that fabric can help you stay more comfortable. And that's really one of my other missions, is just wear the right types of fabric and you will be more comfortable. So it won't stop your hot flashes. It won't stop your night sweats. It will just help you be more comfortable when you have them.
Gotcha.
And then you can sleep better, or be more comfortable when you're awake.
Maybe you guys can start making sheets next.
That's it's on the agenda. Yeah, for sure. For sure. I've already got the fabric picked out.
So that'd be a cool
yeah,
bundle.
Yeah, I've had a lot of, let's put it this way, this is like I'm dipping my toe into the sleepwear and apparel market right now, to say, because it's, as you can imagine, it's a highly crowded market, but at the same time, I want to do something that is for a very specific crowd, the hot and sweaty crowd, as I like to call them, and help them sleep better. So that's because I'm one of them.
Right, I'm one of them too. My family is all we all are like neck sweaters. Like we all, we have to wear our hair up because it's just gross. And it came from my grandmother did it, and my mom and my aunts and we just do it. Yeah. So we're a sweaty family. Yeah. Sorry people, it might be gross, but it's reality. But this is it. It could be a game changer, I think. I'm looking forward to trying that for sure. And I think that the sheets might be a really cool little addition.
Yeah, me too. Me too. At some point. So
Right.
long-term plan.
Yeah. Well, so Cathy, I appreciate your time so much. I always ask everyone what the word sustainability means to you, or so what does the word sustainability mean to you?
Well, I think it's a term that's gotten diluted over the years. I did a master's in political science and environmental studies way back in 1992, before it was on anybody's agenda. But when the Brundtland Commission had just come out with Our Common Future. And so I always go by their definition, the Brundtland Report, I think it was called, Our Common Future, old book from 91, I think. And it basically means meeting the needs of today's people without compromising the needs of the future.
Okay.
And we are not doing that. In other words, not using any more than we already have. And I think that that meaning of sustainability gets diluted so that people say sustainable and they mean it's eco-friendly. And that has been so greenwashed that sustainability has done the same thing. So I guess I like to live by what I consider sustainability rules and values, and that is using the least possible damaging fabric that people can afford. And in other words, I could be using vegetable dyes, but if I used vegetable dyes, we'd be looking at nightgowns that were probably close to $300. And then who are they helping? Mm-hmm. So at least the dyes that we use in our fabric are made out of, they're called low reactive. So they don't have any heavy chemicals, heavy metals in them. There's no zinc, no mercury, no cadmium, no lead, which are common in standard dyes. And then the method that our company uses for separating the hemp out is they use a steam method. The most common method is a chemical method. So the steam method is better because, again, there are no harsh chemicals used. However, it requires a ton of electricity. So how is that electricity generated? It's the only other way to do it is dew retting. And dew retting is what they can do here in Canada on big open fields. You leave it on, you harvest it, and then you let it ret. And then you let it ret for, like, I think it's something like 3 weeks. So that's the best way, but that has to be hand done. Mm-hmm. And doing manual labor is really expensive. So that's why these methods still have a long way to go. Mm-hmm. And so I try to be conscientious. I have to pick a middle ground so that I can try to provide a product that is somewhat affordable. And I'm always trying to improve. So I don't actually talk a lot about sustainability on the website, other than we're really trying our best, and we know that we're making mistakes, and we're trying to become better citizens. It's really hard when you're as small as we are, because you have to go with what's already out there.
Right. I mean, I think that, the world as it is so accustomed to convenience. So, the convenience foods and, the gasoline and, using all the electricity, and, it stemmed from, years and years and years of, people getting busier and busier. And so if, the whole, like I follow the slow food movement and, stuff like that. And because it's so inspiring to me, and, we're not perfect, like, nobody's perfect, but we're trying to improve the situation that we're in. Like you're creating this natural fiber clothing that's going to be so comfortable and helpful. And, there are going to be, imperfect parts of that. Like it's,
right. Exactly.
Like you were saying with the, you were saying that nobody in North America works with hemp, like to create fabric with it. So you have to, it has to be sent away. And that's part of, our society, like where we're at right now, like, which is unfortunate because it's so easy to grow. You know, it would
Yeah,
make so much sense to use
make
that.
it here. Yeah, exactly. So it is one of the reasons I wouldn't use bamboo, not because I don't like it. It's actually a great product, but because we do not grow it here in North America. They do grow it in parts of the US, but it's not a main crop. So you want something that can be grown, mass produced. And hemp is also, it needs no extra irrigation the way cotton does. It doesn't need very many pesticides, if any. It doesn't need any pesticides. It does need some fertilizer. Excuse me. But as a rotation crop, it's a great rotation crop. It also cleans the soil. It's got a ton of environmental benefits to it. So I like to promote its use. And it doesn't have any THC in it, or it's got less than 0.1% THC. So it doesn't have the psychoactive drug in it. So, you know, that's another issue that people were concerned about.
I wonder if there's somebody that is working, like creating fabric out of the hemp and just not vocal about it.
I do actually know of an organization. I know of a couple of organizations that are in the experimental stage with producing the yarn. You can get the yarn imported and then make that hemp fabric, but you're not growing the hemp here that's being used here and turned into the yarn that eventually gets woven into the fabric. So you are right, as in I know of at least one, if not two, that are making hemp fabric, but it's more for burlap sacks, that kind of thing.
Okay.
It's not meant for clothing use. It's meant for industrial use.
Okay.
But it's a start.
It's a start. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, we need to encourage people to look into that.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
you know, I think that if people vote with their wallets, you know, and
Yeah.
say, I'm not buying this polyester garbage. I'm not,
Right.
you know, we want the natural fabrics. We have all of this hemp. Let's figure that out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully, you know, hopefully a little pressure will help that.
It's definitely a challenge, especially for exercise wear, to stay away from polyester nylon elastane. Um, I think there are some pieces, more the athletic yoga wear that's made out of tencel, the fabric that we talked about earlier. But for the most part, the most of the athletic wear, unfortunately, is made out of polyester.
I was
And
thinking
so
exactly that. I'm like, isn't that what it's all made of?
it's all, as far as I've seen, it's all polyester. It's next to impossible. So my thing would be just keep it as long as you can. Just if you can. But then you know the problem with keeping it is that the longer you have it and the more it ages, the more it sheds the microfibers, the microplastics. You can't win.
We just
So
have to not use it.
yeah.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
the only way around it, is to stop.
Yeah.
I mean, I read an article a couple of months ago, maybe 3 months ago, about tea bags. Like, so many tea bags have microplastics in them, and we're
Yeah.
putting them in hot water, which is just
Yeah.
crazy pants to me. And that just
It
blew
is.
my mind. And I was so
Yeah.
angry. Like,
Yeah.
people are like, well, so just don't compost it. I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, we're
Yeah.
melting that
You're
in our
absorbing.
tea and we're drinking it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
why
Exactly.
is that necessary? Why, you know,
Yeah.
some tea companies are
It's
not
not,
using
because
that.
it's cheaper.
Oh
It's cheaper,
my
right?
gosh.
It's all about how cheap it is, and there aren't enough government boundaries to say no, you can't do that. You're sacrificing the health of our population. You cannot use that product. Just use something else that is safe for humans.
Yeah.
But they, you know, that rule will come out after what, like 2 million deaths or something. So it's always ahead. So they sort of skirt
Show me the numbers
those
and we'll make a
boundaries.
change.
They just come to it. Exactly.
Oh
Exactly.
gosh.
So
Oh, it's killer. Uh, wow. Wow. So that's, I love, I love your meaning of sustainability. I love that you're able to weave that into what you're actually doing. And so you're totally in line um, with your goals on that. So if somebody, or 75% of the women that are experiencing any night sweats or whatever, like if they want to look at your wares and, you know, follow you and get information, because I'm pretty sure that you have more than just clothing. You've done a lot of research, and you were saying that food, like your what you're taking in and what you're wearing, and your activities and stuff, it all can affect your sleep. It can affect your temperature, and your symptoms. So I'm sure that you have more than just clothing um, on your Instagram and your blogs. So how can people find you or follow you or buy your clothes?
So you can go to, it's pretty simple. You go to 𝗠𝗶𝘃𝘁.com. If you have specific questions, I love helping people either make decisions, or if they ask me what about the sleepwear itself, they can contact me at Cathy at 𝗠𝗶𝘃𝘁.com, and it's Cathy with a C. You can follow us at 𝗠𝗶𝘃𝘁 on Instagram, and we have a Facebook group, which is 𝗠𝗶𝘃𝘁 again. And then there's a link to our YouTube channel, which I promised I promised my social media coordinator I'd become a little bit more outgoing on that, because I'm not all that outgoing a person. So I thought, she suggested that we do a few fabric education segments. So
That's
I think
great.
we'll be doing, yeah, I think we'll be doing a couple of which fabrics to wear when you're hot and sweaty kind of thing. So we'll do that. So you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. And we have a pillowcase that helps hot and sweaty heads. And we have right now just one nightgown in 3 different sizes with a new style on the way. And then I also provide a little ebook. It's an e-journal with every nightgown to help women track what might be triggering their night sweats, making them better or worse. So that way, because it's not just about what you eat, it's all about when you exercise, what time you exercise. It's about your stress level. It's about, you know, are you ovulating? Are you not? Because that can also affect it. And then it's about your bedding and what you're sleeping in and your room temperature and all of those factors as well. And those can make an immediate difference in terms of making some changes there, analyzing what you already have and changing them out. So that automatically comes. You can buy it for $4.99, but you
get it for free with a nightgown.
Exactly.
And some people, you said some people wear the nightgown during the day, so you can call it loungewear.
Yeah, it's loungewear as well. Definitely. I've had women contact me and say they wear it out. They put a nice little necklace with it and some strappy sandals in the summer. And they say, yeah, why not? It keeps me comfortable and dry. And I thought, yeah, of course. So yeah, for sure, it does.
Awesome. Very cool. I'm so looking forward to digging into this more. So folks, all this information is going to be in the show notes. Cool Your Sweats everywhere. Is the YouTube also Cool Your Sweats?
Yes. Oh, no, it isn't. I reserved the name, but they haven't assigned it to me. So it's like 𝗣𝗚𝚗𝚂𝗁𝗃, something like that. So you can't find it unless you go through my website.
Okay. All right. I'll try to do that and put that in the show notes as well. Oh my gosh, Cathy, this has been so fun. And I love making light of this, like,
really uncomfortable
miserable time frame. Yeah. So I mean,
Yeah.
because we're talking about it, because we're putting it out there, we can also joke about it.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
and make changes. So
Yeah.
so thank you so much for that. Thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for being willing to do this with me. I've had a great time, and
Oh, it
I
was a
so
pleasure. It was really
appreciate.
fun talking to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I so appreciate all the research that you've done. I have not done any research. I've just been suffering. So
Well, I didn't do it when I was your age either. So I totally understand where you're coming from. I totally get it. Yeah. So,
but thank you again. I'm gonna
You're
just,
welcome. Thank you for having me on your show.
yeah, absolutely.